and all that, and what subsequently happened to the continental and global potential of African Renaissance. It is my own observation in studying and writing about the two discourses that there are strange coincidences, and of course I understand that one of them is indeed truly Africa generated. And maybe I've lasted too long in post-colonial studies to understand that when these things happen, there are other potential things at work. Let me give you a corollary of that. Something that I'm worried about, and I'm going to be talking about in Johannesburg on Thursday. For instance, these discoveries, you know, now we are 300,000 years old as opposed to the fossil discoveries in Morocco. The recent fossil discoveries, Homo sapiens, you know. So last month, the history of the discipline of history and anthropology, you know, those two, they change, right? Because there's this discovery. We thought that the oldest human fossils, you know, were in Ethiopia, discovered in Ethiopia, 195 years old, and all of a sudden, you know, it's 300,000 years old. I may not be getting the dates right. And I'm asking myself, for instance, apart from the fact that that was a very big news in the West, not here in the continent. I got to Ghana, nobody knew what I was talking about. But it was a very big news. You know, everywhere, all the history of humankind has changed, anthropology has changed forever, history has changed forever, and everybody is talking about the finds. You know, it's shifted from Ethiopia. So we started out in Kenya, and then we went to Ethiopia, and now we are in Morocco. So I'm starting to get worried in my head as that the next finding, this thing may cross the Mediterranean and we will discover it, you know. So I'm at a point where, because there are no, and I am not blaming the finders, because if you look at all the actors there, all the people being interviewed by all the global media, all the big scholars and anthropologists, those who found it and discovered it, you know, and put their resources, there are no Africans involved. So I'm asking, where is African history and where are African historians? Where is African anthropology and where are African anthropologists? Those who need to, you know, they're not there because, it is not because we don't have the resources. But the resources are not, we don't value and fund research, and we don't understand the power of the narrative. So I'm thinking that in 20 years, the origins of mankind, there will be another find on the coasts of Spain or Italy. You know, this thing is moving. So I'm worried. And so that's how I'm worried about I'll almost say competitive emergence of these two discourses. And one got all the resources of the neoliberal global order to push it, whereas, you know, African Renaissance, a few conferences, a few journals here and there, you know, nobody's heard about it in Nigeria or Ghana or Kenya. So that's what I was worried about. Xenophobia, I'm not so much interested, and you're right, you know, we need to of course, understand the sources, the causes, and one could, you know, hazard a few educated guesses, but we need to have an empirical. One thing I don't do is that, you know, when we talk about these things, we shouldn't deny the existence of the problems. The problems are there. The problems are there. You know, Boko Haram is there. But I begin to have a problem, for instance, when, as the director of the only Institute of African Studies in the whole of Canada, in any Canadian university, we've just got one I direct, I want to take students to Nsuka I want to have an MOU with Ibadan. Somebody sits down in an international office and says, no, you can't have any relationship with any Nigerian university. I say, why? Boko Haram. And I fight and fight and fight and try, because Boko Haram becomes a metonym. You know, the part, how do I start explaining that this thing is in one, you know, I need CNN. Sometimes when I'm in Lagos, I need CNN and BBC to hear anything about Boko Haram that's going on 1,000 miles away from me. So how do you explain that there are other stories, or that's how South Africa xenophobia, that it's not all. And I finally got a chance, I'm not kidding. I finally got a chance. After 2 years, now I have MOUs with about five, you saw those VCs coming with about 5 Nigerian universities. How did it happen? 2 years ago, on a bus in Alberta, so that's 6 hours of flight away from me in Ottawa. You know, just a public bus in Calgary. One crazy guy just takes out his knife. Just takes out his knife and grabs the passenger. I won't do it to you. Grabs the passenger in front of him and beheads it. Just beheads him, almost like an ISIS. But it's 2 white people, right, in Alberta. So what do? I go to my international office at Carlton. You know, I no longer feel safe in this, in Canada. They say, what? Haven't you heard of the beheading in, what's this country coming to? They're just beheading people everywhere. I said, but it's only one case in, that's Boko Haram. Can I send people to Ibadan now? So we get your point. So that's so again, so that's my problem. It's not that we don't have that problem, but in terms of the balance of stories that Achebe is talking about, ever so often, you know, you're just in one box. You're just in one box which defines, and then it has concrete consequences that have been taught, even in terms of even having university exchanges. I can't do that because of these kinds of issues. And of course, yeah, resources. That's a capital, but I'm an advocate of this continent is not poor. It's just that, even apart from the usual problems of, you know, whether you want to say corruption or whatever, there's a value system that we need to seriously work on. You know, like people don't fund knowledge. They don't invest in it. They don't even, so we need, you know, a lot, and that of course needs to start happening in our universities, even the curriculum, you know, the value of knowledge. I was asking somebody in Ghana, when last was an interdisciplinary course, an undergraduate course, taught in this university? You know, something, the value of knowledge. And somebody said it's too vague. I said, no, it's not too vague. It's not too vague. I started to think of it because of my encounters with your undergraduates and so people, if people don't even value it, they would not put funds into it. I forget who I was discussing the question of African philanthropy. You know, what we even put, what do the universities, what do they get? And how creative are they in terms of generating, you know, aggressively? We have many countries on this continent is a feeding bottom mentality, where all the universities, they are not even, because they don't even understand their fundamental role in terms of they've missed the way. So if they don't get government funding and subventions, they don't know how to go about it. I'm amazed there are still some VCs I talk to in the continent. And said, look, UG Ghana, everybody is parking for free everywhere. I said, what's the meaning of that? I said, hey, you want me to introduce parking fees? Yeah. Yeah, that may start. It costs me $300 to park per year. It's from my, you know, you've got to pay for these things. You've got to invest, you've got to resource, but it's the value system. So we've got the resources on this continent. This is a very wealthy continent. You know, it's not poor. It's just a question of, yeah, what we do with it. Social media, of course, you are asking me a tricky question because you know that is my home. That is my home. Yeah, social media as a new space of agency and meaning, it's been doing a lot of wonderful things for this continent. I was very happy, for instance, when, what's her name? The author of Harry Potter, what's her name again? The Harry Potter... J.K. Rowling's. J.K. Rowling's. December of last year, she got into trouble with the African continent. And that's when, of course, you know she's huge. She has like 40 million followers on Twitter. And of course, Harry Potter. You can't be bigger a cultural phenomenon now globally than J.K. Rowling. But somehow she tweeted something about witches and wizards. Do you remember that incident? Something to the effect that wizardry and witchcraft in Europe, when it was being practiced or something, it was superior and more sophisticated than African forms of it. And so the Africans were like, you have been saying we are superstitious. So even in the area, you are now saying that even in witchcraft and wizardry we are inferior. Oh my God. The backlash she got, I was like, wow, so the African continent is getting an apology, you know, from J.K. Rowling. Okay, you guys are superior witches and wizards. Yeah, well, okay, you take that from us. You know? But that's just one hilarious dimension to something revolutionary going on in terms of Africa's capacity to speak back, to engage, to own, to possess, you know, and sometimes to even ridicule and use other forms of look at the Radiate project that's been going on YouTube with African youths. Annually, African youths across the continent, these are millennials, they organize to rescue Denmark and Norway from winter. It's like, oh, look at these people, they are so cold, we have so much warmth, and so donate all your warmth across Africa. So they organize. So the way Africa is pathologized as, you know, in certain imaginaries, as only a receiver of aid and all that. Okay, in winter, all these European countries, let us go and help them, because we also, again, these are, you may call it play, but they have fundamental effects in terms of, you know, efforts to use social media to at least aim to have something close to a balance of stories. So it's something I subscribe to. Never mind that, like you said, they are also very crazy people, because it has also allowed youths across the continent to fight and all kinds of you should see South African and Nigerian, or Kenyan and Nigerian and South African youths going at it. Sometimes you say, oh my God, take this social media away. You know, so it's a double-edged sword. Thank you.
Well, Professor Adesanmi, we're really very grateful for the highly stimulating lecture.
Thank you very much.
Round of applause. Talking about gratitude, may I have Dr. Josephine Alexander here? Since you are the mother in Israel, or mother in Israel, or whatever, we would like to say thank you to our keynote speakers and some individuals who have been very kind to have supported us over the years, or probably made some significant and valuable contributions to the association. The 4 people that we identified are not here tonight. The last one I spoke to this afternoon told me that his niece is very, very, very ill. He decided not to go to the ANC policy conference because he wanted to come here. But then he was called upon yesterday to come to their hometown. So he said if he's able to make it tomorrow, he will be here. He's Obed Kulo. Excuse my pronunciation. But we start with the last speaker. So Professor Adesanmi, would you kindly present? He wants us to hold our story.
On behalf of the African Association for Rhetoric, I want to say that I'm very grateful that you honored our invitation, and I'm particularly, personally, very grateful because I think that the last time I saw Pius was when he was very, very small, and in primary school. And when Shegun told me about wanting to invite him, I said, no, I can do that. Like he's like my brother. And I just on Facebook, I just called him, and he was so excited, to hear my voice. And he said to me, consider it done. And it's taken a lot of stories to bring him here, but he has maintained the fact that he will be here. So I am very grateful. Wadagba. The last bit I said is that he will grow old because he honored me because I'm older than him.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next is Dr. Gilbert Mochiakebe, which will be presented by
Well, Dr. Mutato, thank you very much for coming from the United Arab Emirates to come and give your keynote address. It's much appreciated. We know that you're also part of the University Fraternity as a research fellow at UNISA, and we really appreciate your efforts. Your scintillating paper that you gave this morning, it kept us thinking yesterday and throughout today. Your contributions and engagements have been quite intellectual and robust. We thank you with this little talk.
Thank you very much. Both Mr. Fred Kumalo and Dr. Chaka are here. I guess Dr. Chaka will be giving his presentation tomorrow. Mr. Kumalo's present will be given to him later. Now, I will call Dr. Musa to come, please. Yeah. Yes, you've got something very, very good. Now, in one of those boxes is the award for Professor Aaron Sitters.
Oh, yes.
Please, the award man. Please let me check if this is on here. No. Somebody help me. Too much. Should be one of us two.